So we start now. Good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for having joined so numerous this session, this very warm session, in fact. I will start so my name is Magda De Carli. I'm head of unit of a unit called ERA and Country Intelligence. And in fact, we are following ERA, and that's why I'm moderating this session, in fact. I will concentrate on the title first of the session. It is called A New Era for ERA and the Coalition of the Winning. So why we need a new era for ERA? So why we are here discussing these things? So if we look at the overall context, it seems that probably it's the right moment to do that. On one side, we have a new commission. Thanks for coming. We have a new commission probably in place if everything goes fine very soon. We have seen in the guidelines on new commissioner, President Commission-elect Ursula von der Leyen, the ambitious program and how much, in fact, research and innovation can deliver on those priorities she has mentioned, like climate neutrality, digital technologies. These are big challenges, and research and innovation is definitely has to deliver on those, and is the good tool for that. Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, and Horizon Europe even more, as we have seen during these days, is really trying to be up to the challenge, to face the expectation on it. So not only it will deliver on the current big successes, ERC, Marie Sklodowska-Curie, the collaborative research with the challenges, but also we have seen and discussed these days the importance of missions, this new tool, ambitious tool within Horizon Europe and the European Innovation Council. So what does all this mean? And I have to shout because there is a voice outside. That there is knowledge needs to be central, needs to be really at the heart of our policies, and it's at the heart of the transformation agenda. But what do we need? We need, for sure, more knowledge, but we need also the highest quality possible of knowledge. We need the knowledge that can diffuse rapidly and everywhere, and knowledge that has a direction, a purpose, and the knowledge that can be beneficial to all. So, of course, those that are here, if you are in this session, you have heard about ERA already, and you know that since 2000 we have the European research area and the activities, and the vocation of a European research area is in fact the one to create a single market for researchers, and to do that also through cooperation between the member states and the Commission. And of course, we have worked a lot for the researchers' careers, mobility. And of course, you know as well that there have been a lot of achievement, the Code of Charters of Researchers, the support for long-term infrastructure, S3, and then, of course, the working together support and investments done for jointly work of the member states between each other for their agendas. So, in fact, we have been progressing in a lot of area, in some others maybe not as much as we wanted. So what does it mean? That there is a very strong call now for ERA, for a renewed era. The moment is right there. There is what our new commissioner President Commissioner von der Leyen has put in the mission letter of our commission, new commissioner Maria Gabriel. It's to build a true era. So this is for me is a key. What does it mean true? True is in fact an era that speaks to people. So we have achieved a lot. A lot can still be achieved, but what we need really to do is to speak to our stakeholders, that ERA means something to them. So when I became head of unit of this unit, that is called ERA and Country Intelligence, sometimes I was telling people, okay, this is the file I will be dealing from now on, it's ERA. And from some people I heard, era. Now my objective is that in 1 year time, every time I speak about era, people say, "Wow, this is interesting. This is cool. This is," and people knows and they feel really attracted by them, engaged, and era tells something to them. So for doing that, we cannot do it alone. We need to do it all together. We need to look at the past, to look at the future, to see what is really, how ERA can really tell something, but not only to researchers, but also to policymakers that have to engage in that, to universities, to research organizations, and to the citizen. So to see how people can really get engaged and how ERA can then deliver on its priorities and what we want ERA to be in the future. So in order to help us construct this new era, this true new era, I have the honor to be together with the 4 speakers that I will call now on stage. So I have Marta Latzit, if I said it correctly. He's a researcher at Circle London University, a lecturer at the Copenhagen Business School, and visiting scholars at MIT. Has been also ERAC delegate, if I'm not wrong, and in the past, and head of the policy department of the Minister of Economic Affairs in Estonia. So thanks for joining us. Then I will invite on stage Johan Hansen, Secretary General of the Department of Economic Science and Innovation of the Flemish administration since 2015 and head of the former Minister of Economic in the past. Thanks for joining. Tim van der Hagen, President of the Delft University of Technology since May 2016, if I'm not wrong, and Rector Magnificus since 2018, member of the Dutch Energy Council in the past. So please on stage. And Muriel Atane, EARTO Secretary General since 2013, previously Secretary General of EARPA and of TNO in the past. So in fact, what we have on stage is exactly what we were saying. We are trying to have everybody engaged, and that ERA means something to everybody, and to this being policymakers, researchers, universities, or more the innovation side. And they are in fact representing these 4, let's say, categories. So I would just ask each of them to quickly give their vision, in fact. So I would ask you, what should the new era look like to you? To bring added value for your activity first, and then what would you take to make you, and what would it take to make you an ardent supporter of ERA? So saying, yes, this is a wow era. So please, I give the floor to, we can do it in order like that, to Mart, please. You have the microphone there.
Hello, and thank you very much for this opportunity to present my view on what the future of ERA should look like. Well, I think my vision of ERA would be that we need a more global and more purposeful ERA. So definitely what it means more global is that what we know from network science is that we can have clusters of countries that are very tightly connected to each other, and exchange sophisticated knowledge. But what we and that's already what is, I think, happening in Europe, thanks to the progress that ERA has made. That there are that individual countries and individual institutions are quite well connected. But the issue with the closed system is that where do you get new ideas? So how do we connect? How do we connect those European networks to global networks? How do we get the new ideas from established centers like the US and Canada, or rising centers like China and other Asian countries? For example, we could see that the co-publications or cooperation between China and US is 3 times higher than between China and Europe, and that means that we're actually we're already being cut off from some knowledge flows where we should be part of. So the challenge for ERA is definitely how to be part of the global research area, and not just being limited to Europe. And the other part of my vision is that ERA definitely should be more purposeful. I mean, I have worked with innovation policy for a long time, and I was a member of ERAC, and I was always on the let's say innovation side of things. And I still see that well, we're doing an excellent job in producing a lot of good knowledge in ERA, but the challenge is how to connect this knowledge to the how to connect the supply side of knowledge creation to demand. So who actually needs that knowledge, and what kind of knowledge what kind of knowledge is needed, and how do we connect that demand to the supply that we have? So certainly what we need to do is have a more, let's say, holistic innovation approach to ERA, meaning that there should also, in addition to the supply side that we already have, there needs to be a strong demand side. So this can mean connecting what we do with ERA stronger to other policy areas already on the European level, like energy policy or transport policy, but also thinking more broadly about developing policy instruments for demand, like public procurement of innovation. And finally, of course, I think the thinking about innovation policy and research and innovation policy has evolved to an extent that we can say that it's no longer sufficient to have innovation just for the sake of let's say company growth or more profits, but we need to have a broader purpose, and we need innovation to provide solutions to challenges and to problems. And I think in that respect, the mission-oriented approach that we have been talking about already for 1.5 days here, I think that's very important. And the more we can think in terms of providing solutions to sustainability challenges using the tools of ERA and also the innovation tools, I mean, the more we can do it, the better. So, thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks to you. So, yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. They always speak about the Brussels bubble. I think from now on we should speak about the Brussels sauna. But first, let me say some quick words concerning the title of our session. Building a coalition of the winning. But I think that before we can build a coalition of the winning, we need first a coalition of the willing. And it all starts with the willingness of individual EU member states and non-EU member states to actively work together. And I think we need a much, much closer cooperation in Europe. And I see 3 reasons, very quick. First reason, we need to realize that the geography of R&D is changing rapidly. And Europe is losing ground vis-à-vis the United States and vis-à-vis Asia. So the competition is not inside Europe, it's outside with other continents. Second reason, the grand challenges of our time, they are all global challenges. And by definition, they are transnational challenges. Energy, climate, health, aging. No individual country can come up with its own solutions because the problems are too complex. Third reason, R&D becomes more and more capital intensive. National R&D budgets are just too small. Already today, we can see that the R&D budgets of big companies such as Samsung or Alphabet or Microsoft or Volkswagen, their own R&D budget is bigger than the whole public budget, R&D budget of countries like Sweden or Austria. So is there a willingness to work closely together? I would say yes in the wording, but not in the action. And in the wording, we can be hopeful. You all noticed that on the 20th of June, this year, the Council adopted its strategic agenda 2019-2024. And in that agenda, it is clearly stated, and I quote, Europe should increase its innovation and research efforts, in particular by addressing the fragmentation of European research, development, and innovation. So that's a statement of our heads of state. But when we look at the actions, then we are not so hopeful. We are in the midst of the discussions on the MFK, and there we can see that the budgets are too small, and also the willingness of the individual member states to align their national budgets in a sort of strategic European agenda is too little. So the question is, of course, what to do about it. And 2 weeks ago, Belgium hosted the 10th Research Policy Group meeting, which is an informal meeting of the heads of the administrations of the ERA members with the Commission. And I think that at the level of the heads of the administrations, there is a strong willingness to work together. I quote my German colleague who said, Germany alone cannot provide the necessary resources and ideas. We need Europe and we need to work together. So at the level of civil servants, there is that willingness. And I think there is also at the level of the stakeholders a strong willingness. But what lacks is political commitment and political ownership. And I think that to get more political ownership, we should make ERA more sexy. And I have some ideas about how to do it, very quick. I think that for the ERA, we need a paradigm shift. And I see 5 elements in that shift. First of all, as you already mentioned, the first element of a new paradigm should be more challenged and more mission-driven. ERA should be more than about tearing borders. It is more than just realizing the fifth freedom, which is very important, freedom of free circulation of knowledge and free circulation of researchers. But it is important to do more. Till now, ERA is too much instrument-driven. And we need to make it more challenge-driven and more mission-oriented. I think that ERA should be geared towards the benefits of the citizens and bring solutions for the challenges of our time in climate, in energy, in productivity, in the problems of inequality. So we need a clear mission lens in ERA. Secondly, very quick, we also need a paradigm shift from triple helix to quadruple helix. As you know, the triple helix is cooperation between knowledge institutions, governments, and industry. But one partner is lacking, and that's the citizen. And rightfully, the citizen is knocking at the door, also in the landscape of research. And I think we should open that door. And I think that it's the dynamic interaction between knowledge institutions, industry, governments, and citizens that can put innovation forward. Third element in the new paradigm of the ERA, it should a strong focus on multi-governance, multi-level governance, from the local to the European level. Today, I think we focus too much on nation states, and I think that's the wrong focus, because nation states today are no longer the driving forces of innovation. The driving forces in our highly clustered knowledge economies are cities and mega regions, and no longer nation states. So I think that ERA should work more with those regional and local perspective and try to connect all those regional clusters with each other. Fourth element, very quick, ERA should also stress the non-technological innovation, because I think that also ERA today is too much focused on technology. And also organizational innovation, business model innovation, social innovation are important parts, and I think that we should introduce them also in the ERA. And my last element, fifth element, is we need in the ERA I think you already said it, a more systemic approach. And we need what they call more transformational innovation policy with a focus on societal and economic transitions. And for that, the R&I policy at European level should closer linked to other policy domains, such as health, transport, climate, energy. But also a closer link to the skills agenda. And I think that could be a first element in the enlargement of the era, is the link with the European education area. And I think that to put it all together, we should probably change the name of the era. Now it's a European research area. Probably we can better call it a European knowledge area, which is a much more broader perspective. And I think that would be something symbolic and better capture what ERA is about. And for me, it's about building a European knowledge area for the benefit of the European and global citizen. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks a lot. Okay, these were about Italian 5 minutes, but it was extremely interesting. Thanks a lot. Please, Tim.
Yes, I could keep it very short by saying yes, indeed, because I underline everything that has been said by these two panel members. Extremely well put and very concisely expressed, much better than I can do. But allow me to perhaps add, or say it in my own words, because it's very similar to what has been said, a couple of items. The first one, and it's really very dear to my heart and extremely important, that member states clearly show and express their commitment, not only by words, also what you said, but also by deeds. And I'm talking, of course, about the multi-annual budget of Horizon Europe. That really has to come about very soon. Now it's still a little bit unclear what are we going to expect and so on. So that's definitely the first and foremost point that I have to make. Secondly, apart from that extremely important knowledge program, we need synergy. We need synergy between that program and the other European programs, and also the national and regional research and innovation programs. And not just research, let's say the lower TRLs, but also demonstration plans and scale-up plans. And we need to be able and to have the guts to make choices there and set priorities, probably per nation. Let's say one country is very strong in food, the other in the high-tech systems, and so on. So we could really combine the local strengths in order to have a one European very strong stronghold. Thirdly, that is about consistency. If I had a look at the 2018 ERA progress report, and you look a little bit deeper than just the cover, well, you see that, for instance, the indicator of growth rate of innovative firms cooperating with university is a very flat indicator, European-wide. But if you go and have a look at nation details, you see for the Netherlands, that indicator has 14.0% growth. Then, where are the numbers? Luxembourg, 25.3% growth, 25.3% growth. And Hungary has gone down by 26.2%. So there are extremely large differences between Europe. It's very important to make it more consistent. Then another point is, so I touched upon commitment, synergy, and consistency, and the latter one is just money. I'm sorry about it, but it is important. Many countries have already reached the Lisbon target of spending 3% of their GDP on R&D. The Netherlands has not. The Netherlands is still below 2%. So some countries have done what was the idea and have even surpassed that level, and others are lagging behind. And that is, of course, hampering the progress within Europe. So I would really urgently call for other countries, especially my own country, to make a step up towards these 3%. Then you asked about what would make me an ardent supporter. And there are two completely other, let's say, policy priorities that I would like to set. One is about, not only about gender. Well, look in this room. Perhaps the gender balance is not that bad. Sorry, but 35%. With you, it's a bit more. But diversity means much more than that. we as a university are strongly working on inclusiveness, which is extremely important. And we are sure that, let's say, a mixed society has strong benefits, also in building knowledge and so on. So we should really, as Europe, make progress there. Not just gender, but diversity in much broader sense. And then another topic is, okay, European Union. Well, let's put it in other words. I'll try to be friendly, to remain friendly. Science is without borders, without walls. Scientists are working globally. It's a universal activity. So the European Union should open up, should remain or build, let's say, connections with the surrounding countries. That's extremely important in order to make the step towards, to tackle the grand challenges that you mentioned, climate, energy, health, urbanization, and so on. So an open research area. Not so the E, perhaps you should also change the E then. You have to change the E and the R, but the A can remain. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Very interesting. Muriel, please.
Thank you very much. I had to laugh at your comments when your people were saying, probably I was in the guy saying, So I had a lunch now with about 15 CEO, both from RTOs, my members, and with industry. And I thought, I go to ERA, I really have to switch my pet. And I thought, well, maybe I don't. I mean, if you guys are really starting to look a little bit beyond what has been done today, and not to say that there was no achievement of ERA, but if you're looking at what we have been looking from ERTO on ERA side, you had what the member states done with their own constituency. But if you look at the EU level, we had Resaver. We've been involved. Some of the RTOs have looked at that. And we had the HR logo. Well, if you're talking about ambition, and you're talking about an HR logo and Resaver, I think Resaver is very ambitious. For us, HR logo was, okay, we have to do it, but... So it has not been like, hoo-ha. We have targets, we have ambitions. So if you want us to be excited with ERA, that means in the new discussion, you're bringing new ambition. And here I come back to, I think, the 3% target. We used to have the Innovation Union with the 3% target. Are you going to use, and that's a question, and I think that's the question we have today, are we going to use this revision of ERA? And if you call it knowledge area, I think my members will not be thinking hoo-ha either. I think if you call it research and innovation, and you're telling, well, we're going to think about targets, we're maybe inclusive also towards the, the industry, because with them we also make big investments in terms of infrastructure for the future, etc. Then it starts to be a more political ambition you're going to create, which probably has some very great potential and impacts, especially when we are discussing budget and you see that the RDI's intensive countries, which are EU budget negative, are thinking, why should I put money? And in the discussion of the MFF, we are maybe missing between 30 billion to 100 billion, which means reducing probably Asher Europe and also Digital Europe and maybe the space program. So that means RDI, yes, but at European level, less. So it would be great that in that environment where we see the discussion on the future budget for research are very difficult because of many other political environments in each country, that we would have a European ambition on research and innovation that we can flag and say, well, you guys all agree, now walk the talk. If we're discussing digitalization, you have no minister that will tell you digitalization is not important in the future. But they will be the first one probably to cut the Digital Europe program. Yeah? It's the same with the European research budget we have at the moment. So can we use this revision of the policy on ERA to set new ambition and real targets, which are a little bit higher level than ending up doing an HR logo of Resaver, which are all great action, but they're not going to sell the activities and the RDI policy to ministries and get us, further ambition also in terms of budget. And here I think you have so many good things and people which are ready to work. You have new big alliance. I have 3 of my members which are signing an alliance together on microelectronics. 3 big future infrastructure that have to be set up in the future. You're talking about million euros, and you know that you will have European ambitions behind, but here member states have to put the money, and they will get a top-off of the Commission on that. So here you are talking about huge projects. Do we have the ambition to come up within this future era of other, ambitious policy, which is not just maybe the modernization of university? And here that's the question: are we going to make a jump to a real policy ambition with targets in GDI spending? And are we going to also go further in terms of technology infrastructure, on big joint investments, which are not automatically S3, but can go a little bit beyond? Can we discuss, the issue we have with China investing into our tech? Are we going to have guidelines on this, for example? You have some countries which are more advanced, like Sweden or Germany. This is an issue, but it's not everywhere in Europe. But maybe we should discuss that. So you have quite high-level key issue which we don't have yet an area to pick it up, and that could be the era. But then we would be lifting the era of today and pop it up, but not just like 10%, but 100% to bring it to a much higher debate. Then I will be excited. If you're asking me again to sit in an era stakeholder platform to discuss HR logo, no.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Very clear, Muriel. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for all your first round of comments, already very rich. So on one side, okay, we are speaking about commitment, putting money. So this is and investing in research and innovation, but doing not only with the money, but with the real commitment. For us, of course, music to our ears, and then how to this put in fact in practice. Just so there are a few things as well already you mentioned that are very interesting. This commitment of the member states, the support, the synergies you have mentioned, the diversities and the divide that we need to tackle. And in the unit we are dealing, in fact, with widening. We are dealing with the synergy with the structural funds. So we took note, and here my colleagues Stefan and Ari and Marnix as well, Anka, I think they are all taking very good notes on that. Now, logistically, I will go with something key small questions more specific to each of you. I want to leave some time then eventually for people, and we will throw this microphone to you if you have a specific question in the audience. For questions, normally there is also Slido, but just not use it for questions, but please, if you have comments, please put it on, and we will, of course, review them and use it. So this is for the logistic level. So I go back to you. You have already given a very thorough list of points to make ERA sexy, and I like it a lot. And I have to say that this is, in some of the points, of course, this reflects ongoing discussions that have already starting internally in the Commission, in ERA, of course. But this is very nice that we enlarge to the audience and to get, in fact, a feedback on that. Now, on some specific points that are much linked to your own experience. So, Marta, you are the prototype of the mobile researcher. You are doing as well policy as well, but as a researcher, the issue of mobility, this is something that is very dear and one of the subjects that is very much debated. Maybe you can say what were the experience you had in your career in terms of mobilities and eventually obstacles, and what should be the priority on this specific point for ERA eventually?
Well, mobility, well, that's obviously a key part of ERA. And well, judging by my own experience, I think that moving between European countries as a researcher or as a policymaker, for that respect, is quite easy. I mean, I haven't really, there haven't been any sort of major obstacles. But when it comes to exchanges across the ocean, I mean, that's where it becomes really difficult. I mean, for anyone who's ever applied for, let's say, long-term visa to the US knows that you know how cumbersome this procedure is, and you know it can come with lots of other complications. Like you might, as a researcher, you might get a visa to the US, but if you bring your wife, the wife might not get a working permit, for example, and has to stay at home for 2 years. Which essentially means that you cannot go to the US. And I think the mobility inside ERA is very good. Of course, it depends a little bit on the institution, how internationalized a specific institution is, and whether they actually use English as their main communicating language, or how much let's say internal resources an institution has for sending the people abroad. But all in all, there are no, let's say, obstacles that the ERA should necessarily step in. But really, when it's problematic, it's mobility between countries, and especially, I have the example from the US. So if you think of solutions, or what's the policy action, then in a perfect world, maybe there could be some sort of let's say agreement negotiated with the US, for example, on a special visa regime or special treatment of people in the knowledge sector. So for the researchers, and on the, let's say, money side of things, because it's always important to mention money. I mean, it's I think we should have something like a comprehensive sort of mobility program, kind of like a Fulbright of Europe. Of course, we have the Marie Curie actions, but Marie Curie actions, as far as I know, you have to have a PhD already. You cannot be a PhD student. But admittedly, many of the relations for life are actually created, during the 4 years of one's PhD studies. So perhaps there's, let's say, a reason for ERA or for EU to step in on that, and also when it comes to the specific Marie Curie. Let's say, individual mobility actions, then what some of my colleagues have said, because I haven't applied for Marie Curie myself, is that you might, I mean, there again, if you want to use Marie Curie to go to a, let's say, top research center in the world, that happen to be in very expensive places, then if the Marie Curie rates are actually meant for on a country average, then it's difficult to live in Boston or Silicon Valley or New York, for example. So these kind of things make a difference, and especially when you're traveling with a family, and that's important to consider. So I guess like a comprehensive mobility program that would involve both let's say researchers in the different stages of their careers, as well as individual mobility, together with let's say institutional agreements. I mean, that might be something that would help us bring the mobility agenda even further and make it better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, we will take good care of all your advice on this. Johan, in your intervention, you were talking about commitment, being ambitious, being member states to commit to deliver on the ambitions. So, of course, you come from a country that is very well advanced. You are very well knowledgeable about R&D, and it's scoring quite well if you look at the ERA progress report in R&I and in all the ERA priorities. So what would motivate, and why a country, in fact, in this position that is already well performing, would go for an ERA which is ambitious and maybe uses stronger instruments? What would be the willing, make the member states willing to do that?
Yes. You're right. So Belgium is well performing on R&D. Our R&D intensity is 2.6 at the Belgian level. In Flanders, 2.7, 2.8. So we are doing quite well. But Belgium is a small country. We are just 11 million people. So we won't change the world on our own. So it's really important to connect or stakeholders in Flanders and in Belgium with European stakeholders. And let me give one example. You all know the world-leading RTO IMEC in nanotechnologies and digital technologies. Well, they are in close cooperation with the Netherlands, in Holst, in Eindhoven, and they are building their regional clusters. And I think that for small countries, it's very important to be present along the whole value chain. And one individual country can't cover the whole value chain. So I think there is also the idea of smart specialization.
Yeah.
I think we should elaborate more on that also in the era. And then I think the question there is, okay, every region or country can specialize in one issue, but now we are seeing that everybody is specializing in the same specialisms. So I think there also we could better align the strategic agendas and make European roadmaps and more distribute the work. Because knowledge creates knowledge, and knowledge sharing is multiplying knowledge. And I think that's also for a small country, well performing, why they need an era.
Okay, thanks a lot. And this reflects very much as well what the keynote speaker from the session yesterday on Wyden was telling about this interlinkage, the need that we need to be acting all together, in fact. Tim, to you, okay, you have been talking about also the synergies you were mentioning, okay, is also demonstration, so going down to the up to the TRL levels higher, and in fact, you have been also experiencing a lot of experience in the energy sector, so there is a link to this having research for a purpose, having era with a purpose, with this having so sustainability society is one of the big word now. So in these terms of directionality, as we know as well in your country, there are a lot of discussions now on eventually more the support towards technical universities versus other type of universities and science. So what does it mean, in fact, this directionality, and what would it mean in ERA?
Okay, yes, there's quite some emotion now in my country because the government has decided or is about to decide to put more money indeed in the technical domain, not only the technical universities, but also the beta domains of the general universities, at the detriment of the general universities. So it's a relocation of money instead of more money. And well, let's go back to the facts. We are now in the Netherlands working for some 10 years on attracting more students in the technology and engineering domain. And with success, for my university, about a doubling of students compared to 10 years ago. Which is, of course, indeed a success and exactly what we need in order to tackle all the grand challenges and turn them into opportunities. We talked about that, the energy transition, the climate change, the health issue, urbanization, and so on. But, sorry. At the same time, the budget went down. So with less money, we have to accommodate and to educate more students, almost twice as many students as we used to have. So it's very difficult for us to maintain a sort of quality level that we aspire. And it also leads to enormous workload pressure for staff. So then it's of course extremely welcome that we get some extra money. It's not that much, by the way, it's only 3% of our lump sum. So an additional 3%. But on the other hand, if you look at those grand challenges, we are not going to solve them by engineering alone, by technology alone, by AI alone. We clearly need the social sciences and humanities. So I would advocate for a more general approach, like you said, knowledge building. Perhaps that's the right word. And what I see happening is that the distinction between alpha, beta, gamma, and medicine is fading. They're drifting towards, let's say, the same approach. You see also AI at the social sciences and computers and so on. And perhaps not IMEC, but you see large-scale infrastructures also for the humanities and the social sciences, if you talk about data and so on, and supercomputers. So, of course, that's logical from my point as a president of a university. We need to strengthen the whole sector, not just the technical universities. Is that a sort of answer?
Yeah,
okay.
Thanks. Muriel? Please. So, you are here, okay, you represented yours. For us, is the innovation side. A bit you have already answered in your introduction, but there is, in fact, there are two options. One is to have a really innovation integrated in ERA, to have area. So we have been looking at the acronym, we have been adding letters, we have been changing the focus. So should be fully integrated or should be part of course, of the entire system together with the education as well, because this is another point that it was raised. Still, each having his distinct role and all together to be creating an unicum. What would be your vision in ERA for the future?
Yeah, the renaming with area, I would not be shocked by it, but it should not be just a renaming. That means also activities below and the targets and the ambition should follow. And then you will need different type of stakeholders than what you had so far, which were mainly universities. So here, that means you're going up the chain and to others, like the IMEC or the whole center, the TNO, if I look at the Netherlands. So here you have to look at different type of activities. Not to say that the activities done so far were not useful. Yes, they were. But if you want others to get excited by it, then you will also have to find their challenges and try to see if with this area or ERA number 2, what will you target? So if you're looking at RTOs and what the challenges are, the challenges will be on skills workforce. You know, it's in IMEC, it's, you know, you have a lot of PhD they're hosting, but most of them are highly skilled engineers that need to come from somewhere. Then you have the discussion on hosting the PhD but not giving the PhD, so you need to deal with all the universities. I think it's 48 different nationalities of PhDs just in IMEC, and IMEC is only 2,000 researchers, so if you take a bigger RTO, it gets even worse. So that means different ways of handling your PhD and the requirements that the guy hosting also need to know. So for us, of course, in the mobility of researchers, you will have issues. However, the way we operate, it's like companies. We hire, we fire. You know, we have contracts which has private law. Even in TNO, we say, the guy say, yeah, I work at TNO, I'm like a functionary. No, you're on private law. It's you hire, you fire. It's a very different career path than thinking, you know, from PhD, postdoc, associate professor. So you will have different requirements. So those guys, they will be looking at what the skills they will attract, and you see that it's a mixed, not only just the engineer, but also social scientists. And what you see is the big second part of their business is the tech infrastructure. And the infrastructure, they require huge investments. You see that some of the investments now are made by pool. So you give the example of the whole center, but now you have IMEC, SEWA, and Fraunhofer that are looking at microelectronics. So you could have ambitious on certain area, like we have for HPC and others, who could be targeted under the ERA to say what are their ambitions compared to, you know, our global competitors, which would fit this ambition. And I think if you would have a political ownership will come with political ambitions, with things that member states can really go behind, and not only into managing their own university sector or even their own research sector, if you include, let's say, the RTOs, but also looking a little bit beyond, how do I keep Europe into a global position while keeping and supporting my own knowledge, national area, if I could put it like this. Right. And I think here we're missing at the moment the top ambitions, the real discussions, the discussions on the Chinese investments, how do we manage our investments? And because we did mobility of researcher and others, but are we going to use that to merge what we used to have the Innovation Union targets with the 3% GDP with the other ERA environment? And I think you are, with a new commission coming in, at a change where it's possible. where you have a lot of discussion of climate change and others, which are bringing, what the research part could be. So it is possible. You would have asked me 2 years ago, I say, probably not. Now we are at the change where, yes, you can try. And
Good.
I think we will be behind if you do.
Very good. And I start with this, yes, we can try, to ask you what we have to do to try and to make it work from your side. So, yeah, you are there. Very good. Perfect. Who wants the microphone? And then you have to catch them. Statement. What makes sexy? No, this is the micro. This is the mic. Yeah, you don't want to use that one? This one is better. No? Oh. Ay. Any question, any statement, any question for our... yeah, please. Here, Anka. Anka? Sorry. Okay, there. And then here.
Yeah, I mean, coming from a researcher point of view, I mean, I lived in about... I don't completely agree with the fact that the mobility is very easy. And not only from the researcher's point of view, I mean, I myself lived in 4 different countries in the last 4 years. So it's always a fight, but also when it comes to doing research together, as long as it's on a basis of a European project, everything is fine. But I worked in a pan-European, in an ERIC, actually one of the instruments that should foster the era. And we had a lot of problems when we wanted to build up internal research in different distributed sites. So there is a lot of hurdles still in there, and it starts by different laws how to reimburse business travels between several institutions, and end up in laws going to secondment and so on and so on. And I think it's true, there is a freedom of movement. No one would drag me out of France or something like that. But if you want to move, and if you also want to do really research in distributed or multinational research infrastructures, there is still a lot of work to do.
Okay, so thanks a lot. And we will try to work on that. Please, here. Yeah.
Thank you. Emmanuel Pascovial from the French Ministry for Research. I'm one of the chairs of the so-called ERA-related groups. Just a couple of things. I mean, there are many things, but I will try to keep it very short. I think even if we are not here to get so technical, the issue of governance as such is actually one issue. At least the way I feel it is that the governance as it is now is an issue, because we are country representative meetings 4 times per year on each topic, and we are writing some recommendations, and we don't know exactly what happens with them. So at least there is something here. I mean, of course, we have to think about the whole objective, the whole rationale, but actually the governance is already in this first, has to be more elaborated in this first part of the process, because if we want political commitment, we need to see how to involve this political level, and that's also from the French perspective, that was a clear thing that we try to support. And also stakeholders. I mean, it's interesting to see that in the ERA process, it's really country representative. I mean, there was this ERA stakeholder platform, but quite independent actually. So, and if you take the example of the Bologna on higher education, here you have everyone at the table, the countries, the stakeholders, universities, etc. So there is probably something here. And just in terms of, I like all the ambition here. I think it's also important to have a pragmatic approach in terms of really concrete issues. So if the initial and if the objective of the ERA is still the free circulation of researchers, data, knowledge, etc., then for me the initial question is, what shall we do beyond the framework program? Because we have the framework program, so that's good. So is there something to be done beyond the framework program? And if yes, what is it? And if I hear about circulation of researchers, of course, I think that's still a key issue. Circulation of knowledge, for me, open science, even if it's not my group, that's one of the fundamental issues that we have to tackle at European level. So I can't see any future of ERA without open science. So probably we need to focus on a couple of key issues, and being very pragmatic, and which might also include EU action in terms of legislation, probably. I mean, I know the Commission has been avoiding this because member states were quite reluctant, but I think at some point we are starting to think that it might be useful in some cases. And yeah, just a quick comment on the budget, because I understand your point, but I think here, unfortunately, I guess, tell me if I'm wrong, that absolutely no one here in this room is actually having a decision in this process of budget. So we would all want more money for the budget for Horizon Europe for research, but no one here can decide. So I don't think it's a very useful discussion at the end, because also as representatives of Ministry of Research, we want a lot of money for Horizon Europe, but we are not the ones who decide, you know. So yeah.
Okay, but no. Is there? Yeah, please, over there. Yeah.
It's just a small question. I'm from the Ministry of Education and Research in Norway. I just wonder, when you started up today, you asked, how can you help us build a new era? Who are us? Because I think the collaboration between the Commission and the Member States are quite important here. So I just wonder, who are us? When you...
Okay. Us is in fact, okay, so I answered me that. Us is us together. So us was exactly how we can co-create. I mentioned co-creation as well, and this is the red light of the entire conference, in fact. So for us, this is the way in which we get information and, yeah?
Just a short...
Yeah.
I think that has been maybe one of the problems in the ERA work, that it has been not a very good co-creation of ERA. That the relation between Commission and the Member States on this should be more coordinated, maybe. That is an important step in it.
Okay. Yeah? Yes. Another comment here? The last one? Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is David Bomer, Secretary General from CESAR, Strong and United Voice of Universities of Science and Technology. We are, of course, very happy with the renewed attention to the ERA. We pleaded a couple of years ago already in a statement with major organizations like EOA Science Europe for a revival. What strikes me listening to your debate, and maybe following up on the comment made here, is that it's all about image, about sexy, about communication, about new narratives. I would plea for a consciousness of the knowledge where the ERA actually comes from. We could actually argue it comes from after the Second World War with CERN and et cetera, et cetera. Major thinkers like Roberti, Dahrendorf have contributed in the course of time to it. Most importantly, these achievements, cumulative achievements in European integration, have not only led to the inclusion into the treaty, to the development of a framework program as the most important program, but also to the ERA as part of the treaty obligations. We have several articles, and I think following on the comment back there, I would actually plea for an ambitious agenda along the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, which gives you all the means you need to work outside the European Union, to work with industries, to work with member states, to work with the framework program. So to my point of view, that is an agenda that is given as a treaty obligation to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think we close there. Do you have any final comments from... Yes, and then we...
To our friends, yes, we are responsible to make a story good enough that the Minister of Research can still go to the bang on the door of the Ministry of Finance, even if it's very difficult, maybe with a treaty or something else, to go ask for the budget. I hope so.
Okay. So that's very good. This is what we want to see. Very hot debate on things. And I see, and so I think for what I could see and hear, so I really thanks all of you, all the speakers, all the audience, because it has been an extremely enriching debate. I think there is no one way or the other. I think the two aspects are equally important. Of course, we are speaking an ambitious agenda. We are speaking about all the elements that were part of the past, what we can do in the future, so it's the content. But there is also a part that is linked to the visibility. And the visibility is not just the marketing, it's the way in which you then reach the higher budget. If you don't talk about it, you will never reach it. If people don't understand that research is important, starting from the cities and up to the different levels, because you don't have to convince researchers, of course, and the policymakers that come from the research fields, they are not. But I've been working on synergies also with, and trying to achieve synergies with the structural funds. And if you are not able to talk to the people and to show what eventually can be achieved content-wise and communicate anyway in the right way, nothing will be moving. So I think there are two extremely important aspects of the same coin, and at the same time I really agree that there has to be a joint effort, and otherwise we would not make this type of session, trying really to come up all together with what would move each of us and have each stakeholders involved. So from my side, really full commitment for what can serve to really work together and to try to use this momentum, which is unique because we have regulations that are drafted now. We have the different, we have Horizon, we have the structural funds, we have state aid, and we have this momentum as well of debate at all levels. Now, exactly because it's important, the visibility, but it's the content as well. We want to bring the discussion as well outside the bubble of Brussels. And one of the things we are proposing is, in fact, a kind of tour de capitale to co-organize with the member states, with the regions, with the local authorities, a dialogue in the member states where each group of stakeholders can understand and can try to get involved. And what is our purpose will be, since we were speaking about acronyms, with the E of ERA, meaning explain what to people what ERA can bring content-wise, and in this way to engage people and empower them to do eventually what we want to do for the benefit of everybody. So I hope that this is just the starting point of a collection of ideas. I really ask you to continue the discussion. Also, if you want with Slido to provide your comments, if nobody was, because not everybody was able to talk. I want to thank the speakers for their extremely interesting ideas. And if there are member states or regions that wants to host this kind of events, we are very much available to co-organize and bring the different voices together with the content and with the visibility. So thanks you all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. And thanks to my colleagues Marnix and Ari who have been made this possible, this session. Thanks.